Welcome to the Real Paranormal Stories podcast with your host, Christopher Buckner. Send your stories to realparanormalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Royalty-free music provided by Kevin MacLeod and Tabletop Audio. And now, let's take a trip into the paranormal. This story comes from Reddit user Simply Effin' Haunted. And this is their story. When I was young, around the age of 5, I had a cousin named Sharon. She was born with serious heart issues that required her to undergo multiple surgeries. Unfortunately, on what would have been her final surgery, she passed away at the age of 2. My mother was asleep in our apartment, a few miles away from the hospital, when she woke up to a peculiar sight. She saw Sharon running around our living room, waving and saying goodbye. Fearing the worst, my mom immediately called the hospital and received the devastating news. However, this is just the beginning of strange occurrences. Not long after Sharon's passing, my grandparents returned home to find coat hangers rattling and the bathroom sink running with scorching hot water. They couldn't find any logical explanation for the rattling coat hangers and were certain that they had turned off the water before leaving. It was then that my grandmother remembered one of Sharon's favorite activities, playing with water. Shortly after this incident, my grandmother awoke one night to witness a luminous orb hovering in her bedroom. Subsequently, she sought guidance from a priest, who conveyed that the presence of the orb was indicative of an angelic being. Additionally, last year, my grandmother found herself alone at home engaged in household chores. As she passed by her kitchen china cabinet, which housed a musical figurine depicting an angel, she was startled to hear the figurine spontaneously play a tune. It was at that moment when she recollected the significance of the day. It marked the anniversary of Sharon's passing. Furthermore, both my aunt and uncle have shared their own encounters with Sharon's apparition. Moreover, my mother and grandmother have experienced remarkably vivid dreams involving her. Despite the fact that she departed from this world almost 2 decades ago, we still possess a profound conviction that she is somehow present among us. My family considers us incredibly fortunate to have our very own guardian angel, none other than my cousin Sharon. And that is their story. This story comes from Reddit user round-rap4941. And this is their story. I have been living in my house now for a little over 3 months. From the day me and my husband moved in, I would always see a black shadow out of the corner of my eye. I was 7 months pregnant when we moved in, and I was super eager to set up the nursery. Well, as soon as the crib and everything was in the nursery, I would always see the black figure entering the nursery. And I always knew that black shadows are mostly never a good entity, so I ignored it and always acted like I didn't see anything. My husband is also not the type of person who believes in the paranormal, so I just always kept things to myself. Things didn't get bad until I gave birth to my son. Now, whatever it is, mimics his cries, and my husband, who never believed, is also starting to hear it. We both just ignore it, but we always share a look. But tonight was the first time where I couldn't ignore it. I have been struggling with postpartum depression, and I decided to just take a nice relaxing shower while my husband and son were both asleep. The whole time I was in the shower, I felt like eyes were on me. When I got out, I felt better and decided to wash some bottles. As I'm washing bottles, I felt something behind me touch my back. I just assumed it was my husband, but then I saw something black on the ground crawling towards me. I immediately jumped back and it was gone. I ran into our bedroom and woke my husband up, freaking out. He told me it was probably just from my lack of sleep and to go to bed. But I know what I saw, and now I'm definitely not sleeping tonight. And that is their story. That's all for this episode of the Real Paranormal Stories podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review anywhere this podcast can be found.